Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Raga Dvesha Vimuktaisthu Vishayan Indriyaischaran Atma Vashe Videyatma Prasadam Adhigacchati. Raga Dvesha Vimuktaisthu Vishayan Indriyaischaran Atma Vashe Videyatma Prasadam Adhigacchati. Raga Dvesha Vimuktaisthu Vishayan Indriyaischaran Atma Vashe Videyatma Prasadam Adhigacchati. Would anyone like to repeat?
Ragadveshu vimuktaistu Vishayan indriyaischaran Atmavashe videyatma Prasadam adhigacchati.
Mataji's?
Ragadvesha vimuktaistu Vishayan indriyaischaran Atmavashe videyatma Prasadam adhigacchati.
Raga, attachment. Dvesha, and detachment. Vimuktai, by one who has become free from. Two, but. Vishayan, sense objects. Indriya, by the senses. Charan, acting upon. Atma Vashay, under one's control. Videya Atma, one who follows regulated freedom. Prasadam, the mercy of the Lord. Adhigacchati, attains. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki. Jai Srila Prabhupada. But a person free from all attachment and aversion and able to control his senses through regulative principles of freedom can obtain the complete mercy of the Lord. Please hear the purport. It is already explained that one may externally control the senses by some artificial process, but unless the senses are engaged in the transcendental service of the Lord, there is every chance of a fall. Although the person in full Krishna consciousness may apparently be on the sensual plane, because of his being Krishna conscious, he has no attachment to sensual activities. The Krishna conscious person is concerned only with the satisfaction of Krishna and nothing else. Therefore, he is transcendental to all attachment and detachment. If Krishna wants, the devotee can do anything which is ordinarily undesirable. And if Krishna does not want, he shall not do that which he would have ordinarily done for his own satisfaction. Therefore, to act or not to act is within his control, because he acts only under the direction of Krishna. This consciousness is the causeless mercy of the Lord, which the devotee can achieve in spite of his being attached to the sensual platform. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Jai Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki. This verse is a very important verse because this is one of the only verses in Bhagavad Gita that actually tells us how to obtain the complete mercy of the Lord. Not just mercy, but complete mercy. To obtain the mercy of Krishna, we have learned so much in Damodar Leela, isn't it? That if you want to attract the mercy of Krishna, you should endeavor. But here, Bhagavad Gita goes deeper and it tells us how we should endeavor. So there are certain things here that are very important, but it is very straightforward actually. A person must become free from attachment and aversion. This is most important. Very often we think of attachment as something we should become free of. Because as devotees we tell each other, don't become attached to this, don't become attached to that. Because when we become attached to something, the problem is it distracts us from Krishna. So for example, if you're attached to your house, then what happens is your consciousness is concentrated on the house. If you're attached to the phone, then consciousness is always attracted by the phone. Which means it's wasting the moment that you could have used to remember Krishna. That moment is going to something which actually will not allow you to remember Krishna. And every moment that you don't remember Krishna is a moment that you remember material nature. So it's either you remember Krishna or you become attached to the material distractions of life. So that's why in Bhagavad Gita and our spiritual life, we are always told to be careful of what we become attached to. Which is why attachment is considered to be something that we should be careful about. But here another word is used. And this word is aversion. Aversion. Now sometimes what happens for us to become detached from something, right? If supposing now we have become very attached to something. I'm very attached to reading novels, for example. I'm not reading Bhagavad Gita, I'm reading novels. So what happens is a devotee becomes desperate because they say we should not become attached to a novel. Then what happens is we start developing what we call aversion. Aversion means the only way to stop myself from being attached to the novel is to become averse to the novel. Which means we start hating the novel. Or we start hating something which is material. Because when you're averse, what happens is you're hostile. When you're averse, you're very critical. When you're averse, you look down on something. I'm averse to these habits. Now we're all Krishna conscious. So the 4 regulative principles are very important to us. If someone is not following the 4 regulative principles, if we are not careful, we will be averse to them, and because we are averse to the principles. So what happens is we start thinking of them in a very critical way. We look down on them, we judge them. That is aversion. That is aversion. But Bhagavad Gita also tells us that the problem with aversion is if you start not liking something, you start concentrating on it also. That is also a problem. Have you noticed that sometimes in your life? Supposing you don't like someone. That person always criticizes you, says something about you. She or he comes to the house. Instead of being nice, they give you loaded statements. Have you heard of loaded statements? They'll tell you, why you're looking so sad today. Nothing is happening, but suddenly they will say, why you're looking like that. Some people will come and tell me, oh, Prabhu, you are looking like, you're sick all the time. Actually, nothing is wrong with me. But they keep telling me I'm looking sick, I'm looking sick. So sometimes you have such people who find fault with you. Now, what happens is how you react to them is very important. If you start keeping them in your mind, I'm very upset by what he said, I'm very upset by what she said, how can he do that, how can he do this? Then what happens is the mind fixes itself on the object of aversion. Just like on the opposite side, the mind can fix itself on the object of attachment. So either you favorably like something so much that you forget Krishna, or you are averse to something so much that you forget Krishna also. Both ways it can happen. And in both ways, what happens is the culprit is the mind. In both things, the common denominator is the mind. So that is why in this verse, Krishna is saying something very practical. He says to Arjuna, become free of attachment. Attachment means attachment to something which is material. Something that makes you forget Krishna, become free of it. At the same time, don't be averse to something also. Supposing we are telling each other now we should not be drinking liquor. Okay, that's it. We're not attached to liquor. Now we should not keep thinking our neighbor is drinking, my neighbor is drinking, this is too much, this is too much, this is too much. in the end what will happen is that thing which you are thinking of, you eventually become. You eventually will become. When someone criticizes you and you keep thinking of their criticism, eventually you will also criticize them. Have you noticed that? So we have to be very careful. I'll give you one example from Ramayana which tells you this principle. If you remember, Sugriva and Hanumanji, they met Lord Ram, and Sugriva swore that after the Chaturmas, rainy season, he would actually gather all his Vanara forces and they would go and they would now start finding Mother Sita. They would look, they would track for her. Now, before that happened, you must remember that Sugriva's wife was actually captured and kept with his brother Vali. Before Vali was killed, when Vali was very powerful, somehow or another in a fight he expelled and he excommunicated his brother Sugriva. They had a misunderstanding and he had to leave. But when he left, Vali was very bad. He said, you may leave, but your wife will stay with me. So what happened was Vali was very unethical. He actually kept Sugriva's wife and he enjoyed her. Something which is completely against Shastra. Now Sugriva kept that in his mind over and over and over again. And he became very averse to it. But he was meditating on it very much because he was meditating on his brother whom he was very upset with. Now after Vali was killed by the mercy of Lord Ram, and when he understood what he had done was wrong, Sugriva became king of Kishkinda. And after that, for 4 months during Chaturmas, we heard nothing from Sugriva. And after Chaturmas had passed, again we heard nothing from Sugriva. So Rama got very upset and he told Hanuman, go and find him, because he had promised that he would start tracking Mother Sita. What is he doing now? Now when Hanumanji went to see Sugriva, he was quite shocked. Why was he shocked? Because Sugriva was enjoying in the same way that his brother Vali had enjoyed. And now he had kept Vali's wife for himself. And he was enjoying her. That very thing that you are averse to, if you put your mind too much into that, you end up doing the same thing that you thought you were averse to. This is the challenge of material life. So please remember, there is a vast difference between aversion and detachment. Detachment is very different from aversion. Detachment means that we perform something for Krishna, but after doing that performance of duty, we are not attached to the result of it. If we have to go for a function because our family members are asking us to go, we are not averse to the function, but neither are we attached to the function. We go to the function because we have to go, and we pay our respects to everyone. But like a lotus which is in a swamp, we are not touched. We don't exhibit sensual feelings of hatred, neither do we exhibit sensual feelings of love. We don't have attachment, we don't have aversion. And what happens is, we just know that we have a sense of duty, and after doing it, we leave. And after leaving, we are not carrying that function with us in the head either. This is very important. You have heard this story before. Prabhupada used the story before. 2 brahmacharis were traveling and they had carried wood. They were going to cross a river to go back to see their guru in the ashram. And as they were going, they saw a girl crying. And they asked her, why you are crying? She said, when I came across, there was no river. Now the river had actually, become flooded. The area has become flooded, high tide. So the river is there and I can't swim. I need to get back to my house. So these 2 were brahmacharis. They had no business to do with any of the young girls. But the brahmachari who asked her was kind. He said, I will carry you across. The other brahmachari said, you can't touch the girl. You're a brahmachari. You shouldn't. But he carried her anyway. And after he put her, they both continued to the ashram. As they were going all the way, the brahmachari who did not carry the girl kept talking about the girl. And the brahmachari who carried the girl had forgotten the girl. When they reached the hermitage, they saw the guru. And the guru said, what news is there, my sons? And immediately the second brahmachari started complaining. See, Maharaj, this is what he did, he shouldn't have done this, he shouldn't have done that. And then the guru became silent. And he turned to the 2 boys. He turned to the boy who carried the girl. And he said, you carried the girl across the river and you put her down. Then he turned to the other boy. You carried the girl from the river all the way into the ashram because you have not let her go. She's in your mind. That is the effect of aversion. You see the point? So please don't mistake aversion with detachment. They are 2 different things. When we are detached from something, we don't hate it. We understand its place in Krishna's creation. That's all. We appreciate it, but it is not for us. That's all. We must be careful not to judge. It's very important. We have to be cautious about it, but we don't have to judge it. The moment we start criticizing it, it becomes our property. If you don't criticize it, it is not your property. If you praise it too much, it also becomes your property. If you criticize it, it also becomes your property. But if you understand that it is just coming and it will have to go, then it is not yours. Then you become peaceful. This is Vairagya. So Vairagya is very different from Raga and Dvesha. Raga is to be attached, Dvesha is to be averse, not detached. So this is very important point. So you can see from these two examples what Krishna is telling us. And therefore we should be very careful. And then one more point that Krishna brings up in this verse that's really important. He says, become free of these two A's, attachment and aversion. And then how to come out of this attachment and aversion? He gives the clue. You control your senses. Control your senses. It's very easy for us to find fault with people, isn't it? It takes a lot of our sense control to stop judging people or stop looking at people and saying why he's like that, why she's like that. Sometimes we look at people, immediately we form opinions. We don't even know them. Just seeing their face, we think, oh, this one is horrible, that one is horrible. It is like that. I don't know how the new generation is, but I remember my parents' generation, they had a lot of these conceptions, I don't know, they had these strange ideas. They would say, oh, somebody who looks like this, he looks like this, therefore he's a bad person. He looks very okay, therefore he's a good person. People have this habit, you see, we do that. If we look at someone and we think, oh, he's not looking like a devotee, therefore he must be a demon. So then what about demons like Vritasur? They were devotees, isn't it? So therefore, those who were averse to people like Vritasur, they did not understand the point. So that's why Krishna says, control your senses. And how to control your senses? You regulate them. This is the point. Krishna uses these beautiful words, regulative principles of freedom. In other words, the more you are regulated, the more free you are. Some people always think, if you impose so many regulations on me, how can I be considered free? But they don't understand that the more regulated you are, the more free is your mind. The more unregulated you are, the more unregulated is your mind, and you become a slave to your mind. Therefore, you're not free. You see the point? So that's why when you regulate your senses, you control your mind. But when you cannot regulate your senses, the mind becomes uncontrolled. And when the mind is controlled, the senses become regulated. And when the senses are regulated, the mind is controlled. This is the connection between the mind and the senses. Supposing now we are all seated to hear Bhagavad Gita. We are trying our best to hear. And the longer it goes, the more difficult it is. Isn't it true? I'm mindful of time. The longer it goes, the more difficult. Look at all these small ones next to me. I'm very aware of them. They're just next to me. But you know what? So far, they've been very good. Very good. Very good. Mataji, I know you're signaling here and there, but don't worry. They are quite fine actually. They are very sadhu and they're not doing anything. They may be giving you funny faces, but I don't see it, you see. That's okay. But the point is, they are regulated because they are hearing. They may not understand everything, but what we speak about, which is spiritual, will regulate our mind. Please remember that. Even children who may not understand everything, if they patiently try to hear, the more they hear, the more the mind is controlled. The more they think, the more the mind is uncontrolled. You follow? That's why when we chant, we should not think. If you think, you can never chant. But if you chant, you should not think. Thinking is a faculty that requires regulation. And that's why the more we are able to hear, eventually the mind becomes controlled. That's why we try our best. In the house, we play bhajans, we play kirtan. It's because we know the mind will run. But at least by hearing this, the mind will come back. It will come back. Many houses, they play Prabhupada's chanting, Throughout the day, they play Prabhupada's chanting. We may not be able to know that Prabhupada is chanting, but after a while, we don't realize Prabhupada chanting is so powerful that it has a way of coming into our psyche also. Therefore, these spiritual sounds, they regulate us. Sometimes when we are young, the tendency for when we are young is to say, if you say A, I'll say B. Particularly at the teenage years, We are in that mode. My mother would say something, I would say something else. I would say, why you are regulating me? Why you want me to do this in a certain way? Why it must be only 2 days? Why cannot be another day? Why can I not go to this place, that place? We always would hear our parents regulating us. But we never understood until we read the Gita why the regulation is necessary. Because without regulation, the mind is unfettered. There is no limit to what you want. You will say there's a limit, but factually speaking, at the end of the day, there'll be no limit. And when you reach a limit, it will be aversion. It will not be detachment. It's because I've got too much of something, I got tired of it. Then you become averse to it. Think carefully. That's what very often happens to us. We do something until we can't stand the person, then we become averse. That's why in our culture, we even regulate our association. If every day we saw each other, after a while you get tired of me, I'll get tired of you. Right? Even in the house, husband and wife cannot see each other all the time also. After they are polite about it, but frankly speaking, many of them are very happy when he goes to work. At least I have the day to myself. Or the children have gone. At least I have my time to myself. He may probably be saying, at least I'm going to work. It's a change of air. Because the truth is, we cannot, after a while, when we are with something without regulation, we will become averse to it. Or we will lose interest in it. Both are not useful. That's why Srila Prabhupada and Acharyas introduced 4 regulative principles. These regulative principles, they regulate our behavior. That's why everything must have a limit. If there's no limit, the only thing that doesn't have limit is Krishna. Krishna only is limitless. We are all private limited. You know companies, right? All companies are private and all companies are limited. Why? Because they are all limited. They cannot be completely out of limit. Everything is limited. So if we accept that we are limited, then we will regulate our relationships in a limited manner. We will do that. So don't think that what Bhagavad Gita is giving is not applicable to us. It's very wise. It's very applicable. It's applicable in your relationships. It's applicable in your spiritual life. It's applicable in your family life. Don't become averse to something. Stop the aversion by regulating your principles. When you regulate your principles, regulate what you're doing, regulate your habits, then you will not be averse to anything. It'll be fine. That's how we regulate our relationships also. And that is what Krishna is telling Arjuna. And if you do that, then the end product is what? Complete mercy of the Lord. We will get complete mercy of the Lord. So this is a very important point. When you have time, there's one verse that's connected to this, and it's 334. In 334 Bhagavad Gita, Krishna nicely says this point also. He says that there are principles to regulate attachment, and there are principles to regulate aversion. So there are principles, and these principles pertain to the senses and the sense object. So Krishna warns Arjuna, don't come under the control of such attachment, and don't come under the control of such aversion, because they are stumbling blocks to the path of your self-realization. So 264 must always be read with 334. If we read them together, the whole principle of aversion, attachment and detachment becomes very clear. Then it becomes very clear. Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki, Jai Srila Prabhupada ki, Jai Srila Gurudev ki, Jai Gaura Premanande. So if I had gone longer, you may have become averse. But because it is short and sharp, hopefully you will be at least attached to what you have heard. This is the power of regulation. That's why programs also should not be very long. It is true. If your programs are very long, you will find that very often people lose concentration. In the beginning, it is very difficult to concentrate. But if you give them bite-sized information, it is better. And especially amongst the young today, with TikTok and everything else, nobody can concentrate more than 3 minutes, I think. Right? The fact that these yogis can sit down here for the last half an hour is quite amazing. Isn't it, Sham? What a smile. Goram? See? They're all very good. So shall we chant Krishna's names? Are there any questions? Any questions? Any comments? Any realizations? Srilan Prabhu. Yes, Prabhuji.
So in general, the principle is like we should not be averse to anything, or
we should be detached from everything, but we should not be averse to anything. That's very important.
From childhood, some of them will have that like, I'm averse to this, so we should never get to that.
Yeah, it is a concept that is wrongly introduced into our lives. Sometimes, when we are very moralistic, we are averse to immorality. But the problem is we dwell more on that actually because we are averse, and we judge people. That aversion is not useful for us. Sometimes it happens very often. It happens amongst Krishna conscious devotees. After a while, we have a very high-fi idea of who we are. We think we are flying in the sky, our feet is not touching the ground. We think that we are the favored people. We think the Krishna consciousness, is the one and only. We condemn everybody else. This is fanaticism. This aversion leads to fanaticism. It breaks relationships. It brings us so much of disrepute. People look at devotees and they think generally that you people are fanatics. That's what they think. They think, you people are terrible. But we don't have to be averse. We just have to be detached. That's very important. Very important. So our behavior has to be regulated. If it's regulated, Prabhu, right, then aversion and attachment don't touch us. But if it's not regulated, then aversion and attachment will touch us. It will. It will. Sometimes we come from very traditional families. And then you meet very modern people. They live differently. They have a different view of life. If you're not careful, the traditionalist becomes very averse to these people. We look down. Sometimes you come from a family of high parentage. Maybe you're born into a Brahminical family. And then you meet people who are eating meat. Immediately you become averse to them. You don't become detached to them. You don't create friendly relations with them. You're averse. Immediately your thoughts are negative. Oh, what kind of person this is. Oh, I saw that person smoking. I saw this person drinking. This is all aversion. Aversion. It is not detachment. My Guru Maharaj used to tell me, the problem with us is suddenly we hear our neighbor is going for a movie. Then we become averse. See, they are going to see Maya. But the real reason is we can't go and see the movie. Because now we are bound, isn't it? We can't do it. We want to. All the desires are there. I want to see the movie actually. But because they are going, you hang them. Because you can't do it. So very often if we are not careful, aversion is actually a symptom of unfulfilled desire. That is why we are averse to something. Because we have the desire still, we can't get it, we become frustrated, and then we condemn the whole world. That's how it is. You remember the famous story of the fox. It wanted to eat the grapes. It kept jumping and jumping and jumping. The grapes, nothing wrong with the grapes. Everything was wrong with the fox. But when he couldn't get the grapes, then he started telling everyone, this is all sour grapes. Why should I jump for it? Nothing wrong. He became averse to it. You see? Why? Because actually he desired the grapes. But because he cannot take it, he becomes averse to it. You see the point? So aversion is more dangerous than attachment. Because we often get stuck in that area. And please don't be averse to the habits of your children. Your children will be exposed to a different world from where you came from. You may have come from traditional family par excellence. Your family, your children will be exposed to a different world. Don't be averse. Try to understand them. Right? You can regulate them. They may still resist. You must try to help them in regulating. But you should not be averse to them. That's very important. Being averse to them will actually not help your relationship with them. They'll get tired of you. And you know what they'll do? They will go for the movies. They will do everything. But they'll do it behind you. In front of you, sadhu. Behind you, everything is happening. Don't do that. Don't do that. We had a devotee in Singapore, for years. He grew up in a devotee family. But because, he grew up in such an atmosphere where there was so much aversion to everything, what happened was he had friends outside and they were eating meat. So what he did was he would eat meat when he was outside. When he came home, sadhu, very good. He was not eating meat. For years he did that. Why? Because there was so much aversion from the family. And it became a source of difficulty for him to handle. Instead of aversion, they should have actually handled him differently, but they didn't. But one day, because whatever it is, he was still eating prasad at home. One fine day, when he was 19 years old, he woke up one day and thought, what am I doing with my life? This double thing doesn't work with me. And he gave it up. Why? Because he was not averse to devotional service. It was his journey, but he was not averse to devotional service. So the younger devotees will have their own journey. But don't judge that they are averse to devotional service. Don't. Because the time will come when they will be more attached to devotional service than even you and I. This is very important. So aversion equals to very much subtle pride. Attachment very much is there because of sense enjoyment. But both take us away from Krishna. Haridas Thakur, when he was alone with the prostitute and she had come to woo him away from chanting the holy name, he was not averse to her. He said, Mata, you sit down, let me finish my vow, then you can ask me what I want. Unfortunately, his vow was very long. So one whole night he chanted. Next night again his vow went on. He apologized twice to her. Third night he finished everything. Then he said, what can I do for you now? But by then, because he was not averse to her, he was not attached to her, but he was attached to the holy name, she changed. And she said, now I don't want anything else to do. I want to chant the holy name also. You see, no aversion. But how much attraction comes when you don't display aversion? Such a simple verse, isn't it? 264. But how deep it is and how important it is.